Hello, everyone out there in the live stream land. Welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge's newest live stream. Want to welcome everyone to our live stream. Hopefully, several people will join us and watch us talk and deliberate about episode 2 of Loki. Just a brief, quick introductions. Of course, we have our ever wonderful Jeff Sloboda joining us here, our co-host of on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. Then also we got from Podcast of Champions, Mr. Arch himself returning, which is great to see him and have him back. And then we got a first-time comer, Miss Alexis here. A few things about Alexis is she's an owner and operator of Honeysuckle Rose Creations. And also is a frequent guest collaborator on Rodlick's Broadcasting.
Rodlich
and Broadcasting Network, and I'm about to be eaten by a Labrador, so damn it, Cleo.
This is her second appearance, Cyber.
Her second appearance on the MCU's Bleeding Edge, of course. First time with me as a host. And also, you also are a Comic-Con vendor as well, I heard.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Great to have you on the show. And let's get right into this. So, I like to start off, very first beginning scene. I want what everyone's take was on this very first scene. We get to see more of the time Variance Bureau going after the supposed variant of Loki in 1985 it looked like a fair for like a Renaissance fair, it looked like. And I was wondering, what was everyone's take on basically the one TVA agent being possessed as her eyes started to glow green? What was everyone's take on that? Go ahead, Jeff. What did you think about that?
I thought it was cool. I liked like seeing, the different powers that Loki has. But I didn't necessarily really care for me personally, the 80s retro music that they played during that scene really didn't do anything for me. I don't know if that was from Flashdance. Alexis, was that from Flashdance?
No, it's just an 80s song.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was okay. I mean, it didn't stand out to me that much really, but I enjoyed it. It was a good introduction to the show.
Okay. How about you, Arch? What did you think about the beginning?
I had a lot of fun with it. First of all, so I'm not a huge Ren Fair person. I've been to a couple in my life, but I find them fascinating kind of more than anything. I walk around and I'm like, what is everybody doing? But I thought it was really cool just kind of see that. It really didn't play into the plot at all, but I thought it was just a quirky, fun little beat. And then they went into this like really creepy tent. No, I thought it was fun. I actually didn't know what was going on at first. I liked that the whole mind possession thing kind of came back at the end. But I didn't really know exactly what was happening there. I thought obviously there was some sort of control going on, but were they like she's totally putting her mind in there, or was she just like force powering her to do whatever she wanted somehow? I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. Like the little beat down, and I was like really intrigued about the fact that she stole the door creating mechanism, the time door creating mechanism. So I was really curious where that was going from then on.
Yeah. How about you, Alexis? What did you think about it?
Oh, I am a Ren Fair frequenter. We've got a really great one here in Kansas City. And mostly my thought was, wow, every Ren Fair really does look the exact same, doesn't it? Because I swear, just looking at the signs and everything, I was like, is that the Kansas City Ren Fair? It looks just like the Kansas City Ren Fair. No, apparently we all just get the same signs made.
Yeah, I was feeling the same way because when I first saw it, I'm like, that makes me think of the King Richard's Fair we have up in Massachusetts, or not where I am, but down in Massachusetts, where we go pretty much every year. And it totally made me think of that one. It was like, whoa, like that looks so familiar. But yeah, totally. But I thought it was kind of interesting that we had mind possession going on at the very beginning of this episode, which made me think about the ending of Thor: The Dark World. Now, everyone remembers the first time we saw Loki do any kind of mind control was on Odin at the end of Dark World, and we don't get much of it in Thor Ragnarok, but we do get reference to it because Thor and Loki go looking for Odin at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok. So I was wondering, what are each of your thoughts on them bringing that whole mind control back that we only have seen once in one of the Marvel films. Go ahead, Jeff. What did you think about that?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was, it's good that we're getting a chance in this series to really kind of focus on Loki a little bit and his different powers and his different abilities and everything. From a comic book standpoint, it's definitely very relatable from a canon standpoint. Actually seeing on film some of his abilities and whatnot, because Loki is like a really interesting, sorcerer, magician, warlock. And I felt like me personally, getting into the scene where Loki confronts Lady Loki for the first time, and she's using the different like human puppets and everything. I didn't care for that much, to be honest with you. I thought it was kind of cool. It was interesting, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I liked seeing Lady Loki. That's what really like stood out for me, like I liked seeing who the hell was beyond the robe,
Mm-hmm.
But I acquiesce. That's basically it. I thought it was okay.
Okay. How about you, Arch?
Just doubling back on the opening, I had a thought on the song that I meant to mention. My first thought on it was, it's a female singer and she's singing "I Need a Hero," right? And I just kept thinking, because we were talking last week about whether or not the TVA was good or not, and I keep thinking maybe what this female Loki is doing is actually beneficial in some way. And then that song kind of like made me think that more, like just singing about being a hero in this case. So I was just really curious about that. I guess just going back to Loki's powers here versus how we saw. I'm going to call her, by the way, I have to do this. I'm going to call her Randy because that's how she announced herself when
Brett.
when she was possessing of it. So Randy,
Randy.
I don't mean to cut you off, but real quick, I just want to introduce Brett Scott really quick on the show. Hey, Brett.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you guys doing? It's good to be finally be on the show.
Brett is going to jump in on the panel, and Arch, I'll go right back to you, and we'll just jump Brett right in.
Cool. So Randy, that's how I'm referring to her. Randy.
Randy.
Yeah, Randy. That's what she called herself. So I'm calling her that. So she displayed that mind control power, which we haven't seen Loki do. But we've got this idea sort of brewing that there's like this evolving power set for Loki. Maybe. In fact, there was one scene where he was discussing specifically the difference between possessing somebody versus making like a clone of yourself or something like that, and how those powers are different. He went into a lot of detail that nobody in the TVA cared about, but it just made me think that his powers are evolving, and maybe this ultimately takes him to some other sort of level.
Yeah, most definitely. How about you, Alexis? What did you think about the mind control being brought back kind of for this episode of Loki?
Firstly, anyone else reminded of a old 90s horror movie with Denzel Washington and John Goodman about a killer who could hop from person to person by touching them?
Yeah, following.
Thank you. Yes, because the minute I saw him doing that, going from person to person, that was literally what popped in my head. It's like, I haven't thought of this movie in over 10 years, but that is, literally all I could think of. I do think it's kind of funny that the song "I Need a Hero" was trending on Twitter this morning because everyone, both from this and from its use in the He-Man trailer that we saw not too long ago. But another big thing that's coming up that I noticed was trending on Twitter is there is now speculation that, how do I put this? That this is not Lady Loki, that this is Enchantress, or they're going to combine Lady Loki and Enchantress into one character because of the way they designed this character. Most incarnations of Lady Loki is just literally a female version of Loki with the long black hair and very similar facial structure. So everyone was kind of like, wait, shouldn't Lady Loki look like Tom Hiddleston? And this character does not. So now a lot of people are saying, wait, could this actually be Enchantress trying to pull a fast one? Because she does look a lot more like Enchantress. So, that may be the case, or just may simply be the producer said they didn't want to cast an actress who looked exactly like Tom Hiddleston. I'm not sure, but it is an interesting thought.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I have seen similar articles and blogs and stuff like that about that, especially after I watched the episode. And that actually that'll be something I'll be talking about further down in the stream a little bit about something that is kind of revealing to that aspect. But to keep us going, I mean, so we talked a little bit about now the beginning, and so now we go on. Now they're back at the Time Bureau, and Mobius is talking to the judge gal that we saw in the first episode. I always forget her name. What's her name again, Jeff? The judge there that was in the first episode.
Oh, Ravonna Renslayer.
Yeah. So she's talking to that scene there where they're talking, and he's like, basically explaining that, oh, this Loki is a good idea. I know I'm going off and this and that and stuff. So my thought is, what is everyone's thoughts on that interaction between Mobius and this gal? Do you think this gal has any underlying agenda that possibly could be playing this out so that Mobius can do what he's doing, or basically, do you think there's anything underlying besides what went on in the conversation? So let's start off with you, Jeff. What do you think?
Well, I'll throw over to Brett first, just to get him in, get on the conversation, and then I'll come in after Brett. Brett, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I thank God that Lady Loki doesn't look exactly like Tom Hiddleston, because I really enjoy the fact that she does not look exactly like him. That's a great touch. I'd say with the conversation between these two, I think it's clear that at least Mobius, he's very flirtatious, right, throughout this entire conversation. It's very much like it's like they've probably been playing this kind of cat and mouse game for a long time, and who knows how long because of the TVA, how time works there. But it's very flirtatious, and it seems like she knows him very well. She made comments about when they were talking about how Loki was this rebel, kind of acting, I don't know, rebellious and whatnot. She kind of threw it back as if Owen Wilson was very much the same way at some point. So that's interesting to me, and I think it's going to come back around eventually. That I don't know. I've had some conversations with others where we're kind of thinking that Loki will eventually kind of turn Owen Wilson in a way. Like they will team up and be. It'll be them against the world. So it'll be them against the TVA at some point. I had a guy on my Marvel Plus podcast last week who was saying that he thought that Mobius was kind of like Agent Smith in the Matrix. And we saw a little bit of that in this episode where he talked about the jet ski, right? That was fantastic. This whole jet ski conversation was so great. But just the fact that he seems to have this love or yearning for real life a little bit, and maybe he's kind of like Pinocchio, and like he wants to be a real boy, or like an Agent Smith who wants to get out of the Matrix. And I think that'll play into him teaming up with Loki at some point. Like Loki will convince him, like, hey, the TVA, there's something up with them. They're not what you think they are. And that's where I think it's going.
Okay, how about you, Jeff?
I'm wondering, well, I mean, I agree with Brett. I think it's permissible, and everything that Brett was talking about, I think is very permissible. I think that at this point, based off of episode 2, the series could go in a lot of different directions. It really could. I mean, the floor is wide open right now. Having Loki duck into that portal or whatever that the TVA uses for travel, and having the female Loki have access to that is like a game changer. And I'll be honest with you, I've got to watch the episode again because I still did not completely comprehend or understand what happened there at the end when all those different resets were like happened at the same time, and they bombed the the timeline or whatever that like they said at the TVA. I thought that was a little complicated for me, so I kind of need to watch it again. But I don't know that I really kind of feel like Mobius is a team guy with the TVA. I don't see him teaming up with Loki personally. I don't see that happening. I feel like Mobius, just like the Hunter B15 character, who's kind of like the black chick on Night Court, reminds me of her. I forgot her name. But Hunter B15 like worships Mobius as like a god. Well, I think Mobius feels the same way about the Timekeepers. And for me, I feel like the throwing shade aspect of the TVA is going to be that like there are no Timekeepers. Like there's really nobody there. It's like they're empty seats. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're gone or whatever. Like they died or like, you know, they're never like, you know, like they don't know where they are. And it's kind of like a straw man type situation where people like Ravonna Renslayer are like lying and saying that they know what's going on with the Timekeepers, when in reality, it's like a headless organization where there is no like leadership necessarily. And I feel like that is going to like catapult the TVA into a situation where it's going to break them down and they're going to be eroded internally to where we may not have a TVA by the time this series is over. And like it might play into the whole multiverse of madness deal with Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man 3, where the all of the different realities and the branch universes might end up in like a quasi civil war almost. But again, there's so much to say about this episode that I'll keep myself, I'll cut myself off there.
Okay. All right. How about you, Arch? What did you think
about Ravonna? I think she's definitely
about
hiding.
that scene?
Yeah, right. I think she's. So there's one thing that I thought was interesting is that you figured out that Mobius has never seen the Timekeepers. So in all of his time there, he's never met them, and this is like a big secret. Which is also kind of funny because he's sort of carried on a sticking Loki around, telling him that maybe he can meet the Timekeepers, but he's never met them himself. So I thought that was interesting. And the way Ravonna like reacted to it, she was like, "Oh yeah, I know what they're doing." It seemed really suspicious. Like, so I don't know if they don't exist or if something else a little more nefarious is going on there. I have no idea. Just in regards to what was going on at the end, though, when you realized that Randy, I'm still calling it Randy. That's what she said, man. When Randy had been collecting all of these reset boxes specifically so that she could go back to this one store where she's been hiding out at, and then she gets the door device, the door opening device at this one, and rigs that up so she could drop them all to various areas in time. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like she had picked out very specific areas, dropped them all in there, and erased certain things that had happened. I almost got the sense that maybe she had dropped them in just prior to other timelines being pruned, right? So she pruned the pruning, so all those pruned branches just grew back out again. That's what it almost seemed like to me. And the reason I really thought that is there was a very brief conversation right when Loki and Mobius got to the Ren Fair where Loki asked him, why don't we just come in before she ever got here? And Mobius goes through this explanation of why they shouldn't do that, but maybe that's exactly what she did. So I was thinking maybe she just pruned the pruning and all those branches just came back out, maybe.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Alexis?
Really quick, if you don't mind me jumping in quick, Alexis and Cyber. We've got David in the comment section. To Arch's point about developing Loki's powers, perhaps his jump through was to learn from Randy since Mobius wouldn't give any info. I think that's pretty interesting. I do. Sorry about that, Cyber.
Yep. How about you, Alexis? What did you think?
Tell me I wasn't the only one who caught that potential reference to Kang the Conqueror in Renslayer and Mobius's conversation. Did anyone else catch that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did not.
Well, Renslayer is a character from the comics, and she was actually a romantic interest of Kang the Conqueror, who we know is going to appear in the MCU coming up. He's the confirmed villain for the Ant-Man and Wasp sequel. And when they're talking, Mobius mentions, I don't remember the exact line. I watched it at 7:00 this morning and hadn't had my caffeine yet. But he says something about Loki's like reminds me of that other variant that you worked with. And they don't mention who it is. But there's been a lot of speculation about whether or not we're going to get some more hints about Kang the Conqueror before he shows up in the Ant-Man and Wasp movie. So I caught that. I was like, could they be talking about Kang? Did he work with the TVA previously, or was he brought in? I mean, it wouldn't make sense. Someone like Kang the Conqueror would probably screw up the sacred timeline or something in some of his quests. You could see that easily happening. So
no, they did the same thing, Alexis. They brought Kang in just like Loki. Same deal in the comic books. They brought him in to fix all of the branch timelines that all the different Kangs created, and that's what Kang is known for. Is that there's so many different versions of Kang. You know, I mean, you know, but yeah, Jonathan Majors is going to be Kang, and I definitely felt like that whole scene where Owen Wilson kept bringing up like her like other source or whatever, like her other you know like, secretive person. I felt like that was a potential Kang reference right there.
Yeah, I gotta say, did you guys see Majors in Lovecraft Country? Anyone else watch that show on HBO?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Perfect casting. I loved him in that, and I cannot wait for the MCU to bring him in. He's going to be great.
Most definitely.
Interesting. All right. So after we have that scene, we go in, and Owen Wilson's Mobius and Loki are having their conversation in the hallway, and they're talking about certain things and stuff like that. And, you know, Loki's trying to, you know, kind of just, you know, keeps talking and doing his thing and being his deceivious self. And then we go on, and he actually starts to do some research. And then we end up seeing him, the only files he's able to get, which I think is a hilarious scene where he's like talking to the concierge gal, and he's like, can I get this file? Can I get these files? And she keeps saying no, you know, and then all of a sudden he's like, what can I get? And then finally he's given the files on variants. And then all of a sudden he starts to look at, of course, the destruction of Asgard. So when that popped up and we saw that file and everyone started reading, I'm sure, you know, destruction of Asgard and stuff like that, what were you guys' first thoughts on seeing that and seeing that there are referencing Ragnarok here? Let's start with you. Sorry, I forgot your name already.
Brett.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorite things about the series is anytime they do callbacks to the films, because it makes it feel really like it's a part of it. You know what I mean? It really feels like it's part of the MCU when they do that. When WandaVision hit episode, I think 3 it was, where they went to the outside world and we started seeing the aftermath of the blip. And then in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whenever they referenced things that happened in the films, when they showed the Winter Soldier going in and taking out that guy's son in the beginning, anytime they do that and they connect these shows and just remind us that it's all one world, I love when they do that. So when I saw Ragnarok on there, Destruction of Asgard, I thought that was awesome. And I don't. Hopefully, it's not jumping ahead just to say it, because this is the part that he discovers it, right, where he's searching and he finds where the variant might be hiding. I don't know if you're going to go into that in a minute or not, but I thought that was some of the most clever shit I've seen. Writing wise in forever. Like who thinks like that? That was a genius. I don't know. That was so clever to write that in there and write it like that. Like I never would have thought of something like that. Incredible.
Yeah, that was great. I thought so too. I thought that it was a very clever way of kind of molding the two concepts together and kind of like, oh, where can I find this variant? I thought that was really cool. So, Jeff, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, basically, I mean, I love it because it's like fan service almost. You know, it was the same thing as when we saw episode 1, and we saw all the flashbacks that the variant Loki saw in terms of his death in Infinity War, the end of Ragnarok and everything and whatnot, the references to like the first Avengers film. It's like, for me as a fan, it really reinforces my connection to the MCU. Like the fact that these like connections that Kevin Feige and his team and the people that they've hired to produce the Infinity Saga, and then what we've gotten so far in Phase 4, I feel like I feel like essentially with WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they were kind of like individual aspects of the MCU as series where they weren't that connected to the whole MCU network, where the Infinity Saga films all kind of connected. I feel like Loki's kind of bringing us back to that like place in the MCU again. That's a sweet spot for us fans, where they're connecting all the properties in a way. And we know that we're going to get Loki in Thor 4 in some type of role, and we know that we're going to get this series is going to affect the multiverse of madness. So I feel like the overall impact of like this episode and the series itself on the whole MCU as I feel like is what's important to me, is like the fact that again WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier felt kind of like very singular, like on their own, in their own kind of like place almost in like real world,
Good. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. What are your thoughts on this, Arch?
I don't know if I have a whole lot to add here. I think you guys have summed it up pretty nicely. I love that it was the library scene. First of all, I love Loki going back in there and saying, "Hey, can I have everything you got on the Time Lords?" No. Can I have everything you got on the beginning of time? No. Can I have everything you've got on the end of time? No. Okay, what can I have? Like, I just thought that was great. But what I was actually going to say was just I thought the him looking at the destruction of Asgard, it was a really interesting, unique transition just in terms of like they built it into like this sort of personal moment again. But that's not really what he's thinking. He's probably sitting there thinking, "Oh, what would I have done?" Because it wouldn't matter. And then all of a sudden he realized, what would I have done in my final days on Asgard? Because it wouldn't matter. You can do anything. It's the last day on Earth. What are you going to do? And then that's when it clicked to him probably that, oh, I could do anything. And then therefore the other Loki could just be doing anything in these disaster areas. I thought it was like a really clever thing, which Brett already covered there. So I thought it was great. He just kind of basically found a blind spot. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add there. I really enjoyed that transition. I thought it was great. And then the scene when they actually got to Pompeii and Loki's like, just to hell with everything. He's like letting goats free and telling these ancient people, "Oh, I'm from the future. You're about to die in a second." And then the mountains blowing up behind him. I thought it was awesome. It was all pretty cool. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That scene of Loki screwing with the people of Pompeii right before they died, that was brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
I just love Mobius is like, okay, let's just try to interfere a little bit in the background, see if it affects. And Loki's like, oh, screw this. And he just jumps up on the cards. I love that.
So what were your thoughts on the scene I was referencing about him discovering the Ragnarok destruction, Alexis?
Part of me actually wanted to see a little bit more about what he was reading because Norse mythology and the Marvel comics have often discussed that Ragnarok has happened multiple times and the characters are constantly reborn. So part of me was actually wondering, is this the recent Ragnarok that we're discussing? Or if this was like a previous Ragnarok, because obviously they would have files on all the Ragnaroks that have happened in Asgard. So again, just something that caught my eye. I was just wondering about that. Either way, Tom Hiddleston's reaction to it was really good, even though he knew Ragnarok was going to happen. He knew that the end of the world would happen to his people. He still seems very shook up reading about it. Tom Hiddleston has given 110% so far in this series. I've been really impressed with what he's been giving us.
Very much so. Very much. I would totally agree with that. We've had several comments in the chat section over here, comment section, from a David Rooks, and he's has commented a few different times. One I thought was really interesting was I almost get the feeling Randy is a future version of Loki. The "if anything, your me" line seemed ominous. I almost wonder if they're pulling in Archmage from Gargoyle's arc. I have no idea what that is. If they're referring to the Gargoyles cartoon series, I've never watched it, so I don't know. Or if it's from the MCU, I've never heard of that.
That is,
Anyone else heard from that?
yeah, that is the Gargoyle series. There's a arc in, I want to say it's like midway or beginning of the second season. I sometimes get the timelines mixed up. Where a villain he gains time traveling ability and he rescues his younger self from dying to kind of train him to become his future self. Him basically saying, "You're me, I'm you, you're me. Now let's take steps to make sure that you become me." And I swear to God, Jeff, one of these days I'm going to do a video with you without these two having a freaking wrestling match behind me.
I love
Hey.
dogs. So.
I don't even notice it. It doesn't even faze me. Like my dog's just older, so he kind of just like does his own thing and everything at this point in his life. Like he's not trying to fuck with me or whatever, like your dogs do. You know,
I think
like,
it's a great addition to the show. It's extra entertainment, I think. But but I
we
thought
need
that was
we need that animal energy, Cyber. We need that.
yes.
Like I said, she's only 6 months old, and the other one you've been seeing running is my corgi Eddie, and he's 6 years old. So he's got a little less energy, but he still loves to play. So, but I hate to say, part of me is just like, okay, you could do whatever the hell you want as long as you're not barking and eating my headset.
I just wanted to add to this comment just a little bit. I think the line where he's talking about you remember how throughout this whole thing, Loki's saying, "I'm the superior Loki. I'm the superior Loki," and then you get to Randy, and Randy's like, "If anything, you're me." So I think that lends to the idea that she's older. I mean, obviously in an alternate split timeline in a different version, but she's older, and that also I think might tie back to the oil field burning, the grass field where she poured down the oil. Remember, there was like a staff or a spear or some weapon which they dated to early third millennia, which would, who knows when that is, but sometime between now and the year 2400 ish, somewhere in there. So it's a couple hundred years ahead, which almost certainly is hers, which would make her older. And maybe she looks back at this Loki and she knows something about him or knows at what point he would be developed or something like that. I think that's what he's getting at though.
Well, if they're referencing that at all, I think that it's probably referencing the fact that in the comic books there was a time frame where Loki knew he was going to die and actually ended up recreating himself or being reborn basically, and ended up becoming the female version of Loki. So if they're following that comic book line at all, I think that's probably more what they're talking about. So hence it would, his soul, if it got transferred to the new body, would be the older version of Loki we saw die in Endgame. And would be an older version of Loki. So I think if they're still following that timeline from Endgame, I think it possibly could be that. Because I've heard a couple of different stories they think that this could be, and that is one of them, is that it's basically this female Loki that we saw could possibly be this reborn version of Loki, the one that died from Endgame.
Maybe that ties into Alexis's idea here of multiple Ragnaroks, sort of like her talking about that made me think about this, that they've died, historically in Norse mythology, they die and they get reborn. Maybe that sort of ties in here in some way. Maybe you guys know something.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, David Rooks also commented a nice reference about saying, he said, nice reference catch on Kang. That FF comic reference was a fun issue. Torch and Thing make a mess of the place. I thought that was kind of interesting, referencing that comic book itself as well by Jeff. And I thought that David had a good point there that, yes, the Thing and the Torch made a really big mess in that comic book, if I remember correctly. And that's kind of similar to some aspects that Loki has in the comic books has dealt with. But yeah, definitely, I thought it was a great reference to Kang as well. So, so now that we talked a little bit about that, and referenced that whole Pompeii scene, which I think was hilarious too as hell. I love that scene. I thought he started speaking to them in their language and telling them they're about to die, and he's like, "See?" And then Owen Wilson seeing that, oh yeah, there is no variance being detected here. I thought that was really cool, proving that Loki was right. And then after that, they go back to the Time Bureau and like keep discussing stuff, which I thought was really fun. I thought the dialect between them two was really fun and enjoyable. And I just thought that they brought out some interesting points throughout, that conversation they have, where Loki, I feel, he's got his own agenda, of course. And just the things that he comes up with, I think, are just really fun and enjoyable. So going on with that, what did you guys think about the conversation they had after the Pompeii incident? Let's start with you, Jeff.
Well, I felt like, if anything, if I had to like be a little bit critical of the show for the first time, it would be that I felt like that arc of the episode kind of got real slow. Like it was very suppositional, and that's one thing that was a little bit of a contrast to episode 2 versus episode 1. Is that I felt like with episode 1. There was a lot of dialogue, but there was more points where the story picked up, and really paid off from a fan standpoint. And I felt like with episode 2, they kind of doubled down on like the dialogue almost, and there's almost no action really like during the whole episode, and it's. I feel like that part of the episode kind of, it didn't drag for me. I found it enjoyable, but that's where things started to kind of slide down that slope for me, where like things went sci-fi on me, and they got kind of a little bit more complicated and deep, like with the episode where they kind of made it more convoluted and interesting, to where I kind of like, again, I totally didn't, I kind of didn't understand completely what was going on at the end of the episode.
Okay. Yeah, most definitely. David Rooks has just posted again, and he said, loving the show, great discussion, nice flashy new logo. We want to send a shout out. Thank you, David, for that. We worked really hard on that new logo, thanks to Mr. Arch down below. He's awesome. And glad you're enjoying the discussion, and thank you for watching, just to throw that out there. So what are your thoughts on that inter-dialogue between Mobius and Loki, Arch?
I thought they got pretty personal with it. It's interesting to see Mobius show a lot of a bit of uncertainty, I guess, in himself. Like he's trying to figure out how exactly to. I can't quite figure out who's really in charge here, because like Mobius could be every bit as manipulative as Loki, as we think of Loki being. So maybe he's not as out of control as maybe it seems like he is. I'm not really sure. Like it seems like he's trying to figure it out. Brett brought up a good point earlier, where his whole conversation about the jet ski really makes it seem like he's got this inner humanity that he really wants to explore. He's got. It almost reminds me of like Men in Black 2. Do you guys remember that when Kay, or actually the first one, the first Men in Black, where Kay like was in the Men in Black, but he just held that picture of his wife that he had to leave, and he always sort of had this lingering regret, even though he felt he was doing something bigger for humanity or for the universe or whatever the case might be. So maybe he's got a lot of that left in him. So I thought that was great character stuff to get out. I'm not sure how it's going to play into the ultimate storyline here. When Brett was talking about them ultimately working together or siding on something, I could totally see that happening. So maybe that's where this is leading. I don't know. I don't want to guess too much with this show, because I think they've got a lot of good mystery going on here, but I did really love those character moments. And I thought it led to a pretty good payoff in this one, where you had this big climactic, like, it's not an action scene really, but this like tense moment where all of a sudden you realize that Randy, calling her Randy, has all these
Randy
has all these like time pruning devices, and like it gets really intense there. You don't really sure what's happening. Start seeing them all drop, and then the last shot you see, of course, is Mobius chasing after Loki, and then Loki jumps through the time door and disappears. I'm presuming next episode is going to be a lot of Loki talking to Randy and figuring out what the heck is going on with all this. So I think we're going to get a lot of information next episode.
Yeah, most definitely. Totally agree. How about you, Alexis? What did you think about that inner dialogue?
First of all, Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston have really great chemistry together. You know, I never would have picked those two to work together in the MCU, but it just goes to show how great the casting agent is for this show. And what I loved about it is that it just shows how they're constantly trying to one-up each other. You know, Loki has his own agenda. Mobius knows he has his own agenda. But at the same time, Loki is trying to help so he can get his audience with the timekeepers. And Mobius has to take everything he says with a grain of salt. And I love just the line he says, okay, fine, but there's one thing you know about me. It's that I love being right. It's the one thing that he knows. It's like, fine, I have an agenda. Fine, I have this. But you know that I love being right. So that's why you should trust me on this, because I wouldn't want to say this just to, to be wrong. Yeah, I thought that was a really good, bit there.
Very much so. Very much so. So, Mr. Jeff, you have a trailer you would like to share?
Yeah. Give me two shakes of a tail, and I'll throw it on real quick.
2 shakes of tail. We'll see a trailer from Loki here, folks. So keep tuned, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Did we do the Dune trailer last episode, or did we not play that?
Yes,
no, you played it last episode.
We played it last episode? Okay.
Yep.
What do you think, Arch? Is it worth a second look?
The Dune trailer?
Yeah.
Totally up to you. It's a really good trailer, though.
Yeah, it is. It's really. I can't wait to see that film. I really can't.
And now a special look at Marvel Studios' original series, Loki.
Maybe Loki wants to mix it up. Is that possible? You can change? Hi.
This variant is insubordinate, stubborn, unpredictable.
He's doing great.
You need the god of mischief.
But he's really arrogant.
I am Loki, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Unbelievable. Wherever you go, it's just death, destruction, the literal ends of worlds.
I know.
Original series streaming June 9th, only on Disney Plus.
I know what this place is. The timekeepers have built quite the circus. And I see the clowns are playing their parts to perfection.
Big metaphor guy. I love it. Makes you sound super smart.
I am smart.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Please sign to verify this is everything you've ever said.
This is absurd.
Sign this too.
We protect the proper flow of time. You picked up the Tesseract, breaking reality. I want you to help us fix it.
Why me?
I need your unique Loki perspective.
Do I get a weapon?
Nah, no.
You really believe in this Loki variant?
Luckily, he believes in himself enough for the both of us.
Why? It is adorable that you think you could possibly manipulate me. I'm 10 steps ahead of you.
You're not big on trust, are you?
You can trust me.
Loki, I've studied almost every moment of your entire life. You've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times.
I'd never do it again.
All right. So those were the 2 trailers, people. Woo-hoo! So much fun. And once again, like we said before in one of our previous streams, both of those almost had every single little scene from the first 2 episodes, like we were talking about. Anyway, so now that we progress past that Pompeii scene, them having the conversation, then they end up, discovering, the variant could be in this one place in Oklahoma. And so then we go to where they, basically end up going and end up over in 2050 to see if that's where the variant is that they think is where this variant's hiding, because they discovered the whole no variants thing with Pompeii. So what was your guys' thoughts when Loki used whatever power he used to dry his clothes? I thought that scene was absolutely hilarious. I laughed my butt off at it, so I'm wondering what you guys thought about that scene. Let's start with you, Jeff.
I thought it was funny. I mean, it certainly wasn't as freaking terrible as like the end of the Eternals trailer with that complete joke, like of a supposed joke there at the end of that. That completely like just fell flat. So compared to that, like, I mean, it was like an Oscar-worthy performance, basically.
I would agree with that too. What are your thoughts, Arch, on him in that scene?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Actually, you know what? Honestly, I was more thinking about that. I grew up a little bit in the Panhandle of Florida, which isn't all that far from the coast of Alabama. I wasn't in Alabama, but a couple hours from. So I was just looking at the whole area with some familiarity, which I thought was kind of cool. But I was actually thinking more of. I've been through a lot of hurricanes being in Florida, and I've never seen one wipe out like an entire building. So I was wondering how bad they're predicting hurricanes get by 2050. That's a lot of damage, man. That doesn't really happen just for anybody who's never lived in Florida. There's not like a lawnmower of people die when it comes through. It's not quite that bad. You can relax if you haven't been through one.
Just yeah, most definitely.
Climate change. I don't know. Now, I live in Missouri. We don't have to worry about climate change, but we've had a few tornadoes come through that would probably level a rocks cart very easily.
We're definitely more worried about a tornado spinoff than anything else. Now, I don't live on the coast. That's a little bit of a different thing. So if you live on the coast, I live inland a bit, so I'm not that worried about him. Anyway, we're way off Loki here. I thought Loki's whole play throughout the entire thing, just this whole conversation in the entire Roxcart shop, dealing at kind of how he goes off on his own, especially when he starts to realize that whole moment when he realizes he's talking to Randy, he's talking to his other self is really pretty cool. Like, I think he looks at him and he says something like, "You're me," or something like that. It was really cool and trippy, and I want to go watch that episode again right now. About it.
I have it on in the background, so I'm rewatching it as we speak. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought that was just, the scene is hilarious, I think. And, I think that just, that showed another power variant of this variant. Because, we were talking about earlier about how Loki, we were thinking, he's got like some kind of weird extra powers growing or something like that, which we haven't confirmed or anything like that. But still, I think I've never seen him in any of the other films do anything to that extent. So I thought it was kind of interesting that they made sure that was kind of a focal point of that beginning of that scene, showing him being able to do that. So I don't know if that's kind of like trying to, pinpoint that, yes, maybe this Loki has other powers we didn't know about and so forth and stuff like that.
You just made me think of that, actually, because when I was watching it, I did have that thought of, so when he does illusions, does he just look like he's dry, or is he actually dry? So, but he confirmed he's actually dry here, which is a different thing than just looking like you're dry. So I did pick up on that.
Yeah. So what did you think about that scene, Alexis?
Well, first of all, the dry humor and wit when he's saying it's like, I use magic to dry myself off. Because again, talking about how it's like, because the variant's going to hear the squeaky shoes of them running through. I thought that was really hilarious.
Very much so. Very much so.
Not to mention, how many of us wish we had that ability coming in from out of the storm, just like, and dry clothes.
That would be
kill
very
for that.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. So yeah, I mean, I thought that, like I was saying, I just think that was a great scene. So that leads us to finally coming in contact with him speaking to his other self, or the other Loki, that, he basically encounters. We see a few different things go on towards the end of the scene here. We get the introduction to what we think is Lady Loki. They didn't confirm or say it's Lady Loki. We just see that it's a woman that's dressed like Loki. We have the whole funny thing with the Randy thing, which I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like, so we were talking about that earlier, how he, like I said, he does like the mind possession thing. Well, if you notice, when the main what's her name, HU15 or whatever, she actually is touched by the other guy that says he's doing the plant buying at this store at the time. And you see him touch her, and that transfers the power into him. So that's another power variant thing going on that I noticed in the episode 2 that I thought was kind of interesting, because I've never seen Loki actually do that, except for shapeshift himself into, like, say, Captain America or Thor at one point in the different films. So I was wondering what you guys thought about that, about seeing that actually happen versus it just being mind control. What do you think, Jeff?
I mean, again, with with knowing Loki from the comic books and everything and whatnot, like, it's just him, like Tom Hiddleston being able to actually play the character more close to the vest than they normally have him as Loki, kind of in the Thor films and in the Avengers film in 2012. They kind of limited him in terms of his magical abilities and stuff like that and whatnot. Because of the kind of the character they wanted him to be, the villain they wanted him to be. I feel like in this series, especially, Tom Hiddleston really gets to play Loki in a different way than he ever had. It's a unique opportunity. If you look at the whole situation with these Disney Plus series, these Marvel series, where like they're almost like a petri dish, where like Marvel Studios can kind of just like try different concepts and like try different characters and let them kind of go and see how the fans react. And I feel like we saw with WandaVision, like the elevation of Monica Rambeau as a character, and then we saw with Captain America and the Winter Soldier, we saw John Walker, his arc really get played out, in the whole series. And now I feel like this is going to be Tom Hiddleston's moment, like, at this point, like, to play this character in a unique way that's going to be really interesting, and kind of maybe even create a dynamic where we keep having Loki for like another 4 or 5 or 6 years in the MCU.
Okay. What do you think, Arch?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's all kind of mysterious here. Like, my first thought was that this is kind of this is what led me to think that maybe Randy is kind of a future version, right? Like, that's had a couple hundred extra years of experience, and maybe these powers are something she's developed that Loki either then learns from or would have developed, in the natural course of his life. Eventually, he just gets better and better at being able to use his powers. That's what I was thinking with that. I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're going to keep if Tom is going to stick around for a long period of time, or if this is more like a Black Widow situation where I think the film isn't really about making sure that Scarlett Johansson herself sticks around, but is about setting up a bunch of other things like the Thunderbolts or any of these other characters who might, or a Taskmaster that might carry on and continue on. So maybe the show is about setting up the fractured timeline so that can play into a Secret Wars movie, or like maybe it's about setting up a kid Loki and that character can take off, and we have some other completely different version of Loki for a long period of time. I'm not really sure where they're going with this, and I'm a little hesitant to guess, but like I said earlier, I think next episode is going to be really great in terms of revealing what it is this this alternate character we're assuming is female Loki is all about, and how she relates to Tom.
Yeah, most definitely. Did you have any thoughts about it, Alexis? Did that interest you at all? What were your thoughts on it?
Well, firstly, I hate to bring this back to the previous question, but I'm pulling up some info about the most recent episode online here. I don't like bringing up politics, but apparently that hurricane scene in Alabama was kind of a slam at Trump. Do you guys remember a couple of years ago when there was a hurricane projection and they found out that Trump took Sharpie and drew on the map to try to include Alabama in the pathway of the hurricane to prove what he had said, right? Do you guys remember this?
No, I never heard of that.
I haven't.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory to me, to be quite frank.
Oh, I can pull up the pictures. He showed the map. We saw that he drew on it with Sharpie. But yeah, apparently having Alabama wiped out by a hurricane, because like Arch is saying, Alabama really, unless you're on the coast, Alabama really isn't in the path of a hurricane.
Well, I could show you 100,000 dead people that voted for Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? But we could, I don't want to talk about that. So
no, like I said, that was just something that just kind of made me laugh. I was pulling it up, and there's a thing people are saying that they think that the hurricane in Alabama was a joke about that moment that he did that with the map. So I just find that kind of interesting. It's like, really? You guys think that? I don't know. I did really enjoy the scene of Loki talking to his older self. I loved when Randy kept switching and Loki's like, now it's no wonder Thor hated this so much. That was a good line.
Yeah, that was good.
Most definitely. So to basically round it out, like Jeff was saying before earlier, he was saying how he didn't get what was going on with those different timeline things going on, the things going down in the doorways and so forth. But one thing I did notice, I feel like that basically, to me, what I thought was going on is she was actually, this female Loki, or whatever Loki it is, was trying to create other timelines, probably trying to erase certain things that happened in his past to start new timelines, is what I think is what he's trying to do. But that's basically what she was doing, was she was trying to create other timelines, and we saw that in the scene where at the TVA, all of a sudden these other timelines were shooting off from that main timeline. And that's pretty much kind of, I feel, what the next episode's going to deal with, is kind of those timelines and what's going on. So as we get to the end, we discover who this Loki is. It's supposedly female Loki and so forth, and he ends up going through the doorway with her. It kind of just ends there, Mobius running after and so forth. So when it showed that scene where it shows the timelines all of a sudden starting to create new timelines, what were your guys' thoughts? Let's start with you, Arch.
I thought it was really epic. I mean, I thought that whole thing built up and was really intense. It wasn't like an action scene per se, but it kind of had that energy to it. So I thought that was really cool. My first thought, I think I mentioned this earlier, was that maybe what was going on, and I based this on the fact that, again, at the Ren Fair, when Loki and Mobius were talking, Mobius was saying you can't come in. You have to come into a split timeline in the order it's going in. You can't just jump in before and prevent stuff from happening. But maybe that's only their rule, and maybe female Loki here, Randy. Maybe Randy. Maybe I'm just kind of have this idea that maybe Randy's figured out, hey, if I just drop these pruning devices in before the TVA prunes that timeline, then the branch keeps growing. So I've got this idea that maybe that's what happened, but I don't know what the goal would be. I don't know what the end game is. I don't know why this Randy character wants all these branches growing. I don't know. I on Podcast of Champions last week, Jeff would know this. One of our questions at the end was, is the TVA nefarious in some sort of way? Maybe not by, but because I don't think that I think that they're neutral by default. Like, they just want to maintain this timeline, but maybe there's something about that just isn't a good thing, or that this Randy character wants these other timelines for some other purpose. I'm not sure. I don't really want to guess, but I kind of got this feeling that Randy isn't the ultimate villain here. We're going to figure out why she's doing what she's doing, and
No.
I kind of keep going back to Ravonna right now. Like she's obviously, she is hiding something. We know that for sure because she's hiding access and the whereabouts of the timekeepers.
Well, certainly.
If there's something more behind that, I don't know. But I was really excited to see that happen because it feels like the show really just took a big push. So I thought that was exciting.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Let's welcome back Mr. Brett. He's on audio with us. Welcome back, Brett.
Oh, well, I thought he was there.
Oh.
Brett, you there? Well, I guess not. What about that, Cyber?
Well, I guess he's not. Anyways, yeah, very good points, Arch. Yeah, I did catch that live stream of that. I watched it, and I remember that question at the end, and that is a very great point. What are your thoughts on the timeline thing, Jeff, now that we kind of explained it for you?
Well, I do want to mention that I had a great time on the podcast of Champions. I really did with Arch. It was great. It was a really fun experience. We did a really solid, concise, to the point review on there. Maybe not as long as the one we did on here a couple days before that, but it was a great show. I had a great time on there, and the guys, the ladies and gentlemen over at Sakar.freeforums.net have some serious talent when it comes to dropping comments and opinions and whatnot on like these Disney Plus shows and the MCU stuff. It was really good I had a really good time on there. But either way, and I would just want to really take a minute and thank Arch for being here and thank Alexis for being here. We really are very appreciative to have you on, and Alexis, for you to be sitting there and fighting off your dog the entire time for hours, I got to give you props for that. I mean, your energy level is through the roof.
Thank you very much.
Like I said, entertainment. Thank you for the entertainment. We enjoy the dogs.
Yes. Oh, and the Rutledge and Broadcasting Network. I just want to thank Mark for getting me in touch with Alexis and connecting us and everything and whatnot. That's one of the great things about being a content creator of some kind, is that you get to, whether it's MCU or whatever, you get to build these friendships and these connections. And I never would have met Alexis without Mark. And Mark's been really great to me, and he's given me some opportunities and everything, with his shows and stuff like that. I'm going to be on this Saturday, I believe, with Alexis doing the trivia show on there. Mm-hmm. So I really just want to, give a shout out to Mark Rutledge. He's been great. Thank you, Mark. And as far as the wrap up, I guess, of the episode of Loki and where the whole story went and everything, I feel like, again, I really want to watch it again. I want to watch it a third time, because I feel like this episode really is the first episode that took us to the same place that we got with WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a little bit less than WandaVision, where we started to speculate about what's going to happen next and really start to develop different theories and different potential, characters that could pop up and stuff like that. And as far as the whole Enchantress angle that Alexis brought up earlier, the Enchantress goes by the name of Amora, and the character actually comes out of the Ragnarok era of Thor comics, which is the same era of the comics where Lady Loki came out, was originated as a character and everything and whatnot. Just to put that out there. So there is some tangibility to what Alexis is saying as far as the whole Enchantress deal. That very well could be the Enchantress.
Like I said, MCU has had a habit of combining certain elements and certain characters together to try to save time and just make the scripts a little easier. The best example being the Tesseract, as aka the Cosmic Cube, and the Infinity Stone. You know, we know that in the comics those were two different things. Not so. I have Agamotto and the other Infinity Stone being another. It wouldn't surprise me if they decided to combine Enchantress and Lady Loki into one character.
Yeah, that brings me to my final question before we go into the Rotten Tomatoes portion of our show. And I don't know if any of you caught this. I don't know if any of you watched through the credits. But in the credits, under the actress's name, it says next to it, Sylvia. Which we all know Sylvia is the person that ends up becoming the Enchantress because Lady Loki decides to pursue her with powers. To mess with her. And that's where the Oklahoma thing comes in, where New Asgard has been created. And so she basically thinks that she is like a former Asgardian that has been reborn, basically. And she actually ends up taking that down the level where she ends up actually joining the Cabal, the Freemasons, and all that kind of stuff. And basically she ends up becoming a part of Green Goblin's band of Young Avengers at one point in the comic books. So that's also a possibility that they're going for. But I thought that was kind of interesting in the end credits that they actually put it under her name is Sylvia. So like we were talking about, the combining of characters, it looks like it's very possible that is what is going to happen. So I was curious what you guys' thoughts on that, or if you actually did see that. Let's start with you, Arch.
I'm actually just looking that up right now. So the here it is. I'm just on the Wikipedia page just for just so you know. The second Enchantress is the young Sylvia Lushton, who was given great mystic powers. Now I don't know enough about Enchantress to know if the first or second one is the primary one, the one people think about most commonly. I have no idea, but that's really curious. So yeah, no, I totally buy in on the idea of that they've combined a lot of things. I mentioned that a lot, and they've done it with a lot of characters. There's a great YouTube channel. I don't know the exact name of it right now, but they do a lot of Hela isn't Hela and Ego isn't Ego type videos. If you just Google those terms, literally like Ego isn't Ego, you'll probably find it. But it's interesting to see them go in and break down like sometimes it's more than two characters. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 or 5. I know Hela like had some elements of gore in her. And Gore, meanwhile, by the way, is showing up in Thor 4, so it doesn't preclude them, if they use some Enchantress elements here, from doing a full-on Enchantress later or something. Who knows? But my favorite one is Ego, combining him with the Gardener in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I thought that was a great little touch. So yeah, no, it's really interesting here. And if they actually, I didn't pay that much attention to the credits, but if they actually named her Sylvia, then I think it's almost undeniable that they're at least melding her with Enchantress if she's just not Enchantress outright. So curious, really curious. I can't wait to see where that goes now. I'm gonna have to look more into that. You've pricked my eyebrows, sir.
How about you, Alexis? Did you see that, or did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I missed that completely. Very good catch. Very impressed.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of an interesting take. I don't know if you caught it, Jeff. Doesn't sound like you probably did, because you said you barely remember the episode anyways. So,
hey, shout out to Black Widow, baby. July 9th. Can't wait. Going to theaters to see it without question. That's right.
Have you gotten your tickets yet?
No, I don't need to, because my theater right over here in my area of Southwest Florida, over here near Arch, is very devoid in enthusiasm for the theater here in this area. So I don't think I'll have to be like fighting people off tooth and nail and everything to get in the theater like on opening day. But we'll see if I've got to whatever. We'll see what happens. But no, with the pandemic and everything. Our theater has been like limited capacity and stuff, you know what I mean? And a lot of people aren't really going to the theater that much. So I'm assuming that I'll be able to just show up there and buy my ticket probably like on July 9th, and I should be okay. But we'll see what happens. I mean, that'd be an interesting topic to talk about, like how well the Black Widow film's going to do box office wise. I mean, honestly, Alexis, you do a lot of movie reviews and stuff like that. What do you think like the film could do box office wise during the pandemic?
Well, it's kind of hard to judge it by the pandemic because with so many people now vaccinated, thank you God, that not many, businesses are opening back up. But there is still the fact that Disney Plus is going to do streaming for Black Widow, but it's going to be for their premium price, which they already have evidence that does pretty well, as we saw through Mulan, Raya, and Cruella.
Which is what, $30 a pop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that actually makes sense if you've got a larger family or if you want to bring a lot of people over to watch it. Mark Radulich, my boss on the other podcast, he's got 2 kids. So he talks about when these happen, it's actually better for them all to stay in and watch it, because then otherwise you're buying 2 adult tickets and 2 kid tickets. So works for him. But for someone like me, if I'm going to go see the movie by myself, or it's me and my husband and we're going to go see the movie, then yeah, it's cheaper to go out to the movie. So there is kind of that leeway. And not to mention, I don't think we've seen enough evidence yet on how movies are doing at the box office right now. They are picking up steadily, but I can't really make a guess on what we're going to see.
And I know there'd be no point even asking Arch, because Arch does. Arch, did you even watch that trailer that we played earlier during the show, or did you kind of evade your eyes?
I ducked and covered. I've got a heavy blanket over here that I hid under, so that no sensory information.
It looked like you were watching it to some extent. Did you enjoy it?
No, I did. I watched quite a bit of it, and then there were a couple little scenes that I hadn't seen yet, and yeah, I have a trailer phobia, man. I will run away.
Doesn't watch trailers. Arch doesn't believe it. He doesn't like to give like ratings to the episodes and the series and stuff like that. That's his deal. So I respect it.
Here's the reason I don't give ratings. I guess I should explain this. This is a good time to explain it. So I feel like everybody has a different 1 to 10 doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. So when everybody's giving 1 to 10 ratings, it's what does that mean? Is 5 average, or is 5 terrible? Because for some people 5 is terrible. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. So I don't get a lot of meaning out of it. So it doesn't. I can't do it because it doesn't. I'm just throwing a number out there. If I give you a number, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Love your button, by the way, Arch.
Thank you. Go Loki.
Yeah.
Go Loki.
I actually just released a set of cufflinks with that design on them from my shop.
Nice. I just happened upon this. I was in a store and I looked at it and I was like, oh, we're doing Loki reviews next week. I got to get this.
There you go.
There you go.
So before we start doing the Rotten Tomatoes reviews here that Jeff's so lovingly pulling up for us, David Rooks has mentioned a couple things again. Here I'd just like to shout out for him. He says that keep suggesting Loki may plan to overthrow the TVA. Perhaps that's what the mass branching was geared towards, which that is a very possible good point. That's very possible, David. Thank you for commenting on that. And also he said, when the female Loki concept was raised, I asked why, since that would basically be Enchantress, so merging them would silence that concern. That's a very good point too as well. So yeah, I think that's the path that Marvel's taking with this. Is I think they have merged the 2 stories together, and that's what we're going to end up seeing in the film, or in the series, I should say. And I with the concept of going to 3 seasons for Loki, I'm sure we'll be seeing this character throughout all 3 seasons. So I am assuming that's probably what they're going to be doing. It's not concrete or anything, but that's a very good, valid point, David, and thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead, Jeff, with the Rotten Tomatoes reviews.
Okay, first off, Zara Phelan from 2 Minute Telly. WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier set the standards as high as Asgard. Loki and his cheeky little persona has come along to raise that bar even higher, with yet another fresh and original start that sees him toying with his own conscience. I like that. I think that's pretty solid. But I'd love to hear everybody's opinion on that.
High as Asgard.
Alexis, what do you think? Do you agree?
Well, I'm going to agree with you guys there. High as Asgard doesn't really work. Asgard isn't in the heavens. It's another branch of the tree of life. I think this reviewer got confused with Asgard and heaven. So, we actually have a phrase on the Rattlegen Broadcast Network. We call them tick bird reviewers. It's our name for reviewers who are writing something and it's abundantly clear their number one priority is not to give an honest review or a good review. It is to give a clever sounding review so that they can end up on the poster or the DVD box or the website or anything like that. We see a lot of those when we're reviewing. It's just like, you didn't write anything of, it's like when we're talking about a bad movie and someone gives a good review, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, you obviously are just trying to do this to get notoriety and get famous. And yeah, we compared it to tick birds who get on top of rhinos and other dangerous animals to get parasites for them. It's just like, you're just, just trying to help yourself. So that's what we call reviewers like that, tick bird reviewers.
Every sentence is an analogy of some sort, like that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, most certainly. I totally agree with that. Next one, Jeff?
What else we got?
No, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like it's a somewhat on point review. I definitely agree with Alexis. I don't know what the whole deal with the Asgard, like elevating Asgard like that thing is about. I guess that must be like a comparison to like heaven or something like that, because it doesn't really make any sense. But I feel like I think Alexis makes a good point that some of these people, you don't even know if they even watched the show, like they just knows, So, I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't make a good critic for the MCU because I'm so like optimistic and confident about Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. Like, I'm so like, I'm automatically like, want to see the properties do well, and I want to see the series do well, and that's the kind of fan I am. So I wouldn't do well as a critic at all, just because, I mean, when it boils down to it, I love the superhero content. I love the MCU specifically. There's a reason why I'm not a DCU fan. I'm an MCU fan.
True.
Well, let's face it, we'll be DCU fans as soon as they stop giving Zack Snyder so much money. Sorry, I had to take a nap in the middle of his Justice League cut, okay?
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah,
I haven't finished it yet. I'm still on segment episode 6 or whatever. Segment 6. I haven't finished the final battle.
If we're allowed to do this, then I seriously, we paused every hour and tried to recount how little had happened in the course of an hour. We were like, wait, so all that's happened in the last hour was this? That's it? Like, that's all that happened? It was, never mind. We really did that.
It looked good, though.
We tried to count how many times they used the one woman wailing trope for the minute Wonder Woman showed on screen.
There was no need to even have Wonder Woman in the Batman versus Superman film. Like, it wasn't even necessary. Like they could have very well just not even had her character in the film, and it would have been fine.
Okay, this is Marvel's MCU's Bleeding
I
Edge.
know,
Okay,
I
no
know.
talking about DCU. Thank you.
Oh, come on. You've got to give us an opportunity once in a while to talk about how the DCEU is floundering.
I can go on with that for hours, so you better put an anchor on it.
They've definitely had films that were not that great, but I don't agree with Justice League. I really enjoyed the 4-hour cut. I liked it. I thought it was fantastic.
I've enjoyed it,
and
so
I've watched
far
it
myself.
for like 3 times now. So I think it's really. I thought it was really well done. It's the Whedon cut that I think sucked really bad.
Well, I thought they both sucked. I'm sorry. Agree to disagree.
The trailer for the Snyder cut is sick with Darkseid, and he like jumps out of that like ship and like lands on the ground and like picks up the dirt with his hands and everything and whatnot, and he's like, "I'll ground you down to dust" or whatever. Like, I've ground thousands of planets into dust or whatever. That was awesome, man. Like, I'm sorry, but
so next rotten review, please.
All right, lassoing us back.
Out of respect
Okay,
for Cyber,
so-
I will say no more.
All right. Loki will hit the spot for Marvel fans waiting for the next batch of theatrical releases, but it's also not stale and proves that being a franchise doesn't have to mean limiting real creativity. And this is from AC Rengifo, Entertainment Voice. I personally, I don't know what you think, Cyber, but I think that that's pretty accurate. I feel like Loki is hitting the spot with MCU fans, and I feel like in terms for me, anyways, I feel like I've enjoyed the Loki series more than I have the WandaVision or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series already so far. So I mean, for me, I feel like in terms of staving things off before the films start to come out, you know, it is a pretty good review.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely. I think out of the 3 series that they've launched so far, this one definitely feels the most complete. Because of how things happened with the pandemic, that's why Falcon the Winter Soldier wasn't as good as it should have been. Because originally we were supposed to get that before we got WandaVision. And they ended up pushing WandaVision forward, and we got that first. So I think because of all that pushing and stuff like that, those 2 shows were not completely given the vision that they truly wanted. And I think Loki, because they've actually had enough time to do that with, that's why I think this is more of a complete show. So I would definitely agree with that comment that it is a better of the shows.
Well, Arch, what do you think of that review, brother?
Yeah, no, I think they're getting to play with a lot of unique concepts now. I always thought, even going back to Phase 2, that by the time they got to Phase 4, they were going to have the freedom to do whatever they wanted because they'd be totally playing with house money. Like, if they really pulled off, like, seriously, go put yourself back in the mind of just after Avengers in like 2013, and you're thinking they're really going for the Infinity Gauntlet, but you don't know how that's going to play out. But in my mind, I was thinking if they actually do that, they'll just be able to do anything they want to after that. And so you've got these like crazy, wacky shows where Wanda creating a little bubble reality and being on a TV show, and Loki bouncing around through a timeless multiversal void of whatever it is. I love it, man. I think they're doing all kinds of different stuff. All these shows feel very different from one another. They're obviously being very creative with it, and I think it's fun, man. I'm having a good time with it. So I agree with the review.
Yeah,
most definitely. Alexis, what your thoughts?
Jeff, could you read that review one more time? When you first read it, there was a little feedback, and I didn't get the whole thing.
That's totally fine. Give me 1 second. Loki will hit the spot for Marvel fans waiting for the next batch of theatrical releases, but it's also not stale and proves that being a franchise doesn't have to mean limiting real creativity.
Yes, I definitely agree. One of the things I've loved so much about not just this series, but also Falcon, Winter Soldier, and WandaVision, is that they are able to tie these shows into the Marvel Universe, but they are also able to be standalone shows. I feel that this is something that would have limited a lot of creators, that they really wouldn't have known how to do both of these. I mean, they practically name dropped the Doctor Strange movie in the first episode when they were showing what happens when the timeline splinters. You know, it's just like she actually said something about multiverse and madness. By the way, we love you, Tara Strong. You are awesome as Miss Minutes. Don't ever go anywhere. You rock. She's one of the best voice actors out there.
The Miss Minutes scene during the episode 2 was awesome. I didn't even think about that until now. It was great.
Yes, when Loki's assaulting the hologram.
Yes, it was awesome.
That was awesome.
Definite highlight.
That was. But yeah, I really love, because I'm sitting here going, it's like, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the characters, but I'm also really excited to see how this is going to play out and tie into the Doctor Strange film. And I'm still kind of taking bets here. Who's going to shatter the multiverse more? Is it going to be Wanda, or is it going to be Loki?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Last review.
Okay. Oop. Don't mind me.
Smacking your own camera over there.
That's a me. I like to do the smack of things.
The new MCU series is a time-traveling crime thriller. The first 2 episodes are heavy on the exposition between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, and light on the action, but it is full of intrigue with a setup that'll keep viewers tuned in. From Lupe Rodriguez Haas, cinemamovie.tv. Arch, what do you think, brother?
No, yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, it's a little bit more cerebral, if I can use that term. It's a lot about what they're thinking and concepts and things like that more than it is like action. And I think that's fine because I honestly I think that's what a film like maybe Doctor Strange, like a character like that, should probably be doing more than like fisticuff action like all the time. So I think it's interesting to get this, especially after we just had a series like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was a ton of action like all the time. So I think it's cool to get just a more cerebral, high concept sort of show out of it. I find it really interesting. I just want to go on a small rant, if I may, about creativity too. The last review got me thinking about this, and especially Alexis's response here. The pinnacle of creativity isn't necessarily having a completely blank canvas you can do anything you want from. Like a lot of things, like I started off in drafting, by the way, which is why I've kind of have an interest in this. But a lot of times, like if you're doing something like building a house, it's really about relating to the established environment you're building that in, which in the case of film would be connecting to these other shows and things like that. And you can be highly creative doing that. Like when you're building a house, you don't really necessarily, if you're really being creative about it, you're not putting a cookie cutter house that you could just put and move anywhere and put on any plot of land. You're thinking about which way the windows are facing and how big you want them, and how light and space and how it's going to relate to the environment around you. Maybe you've got a big, good, nice view on one side that you want to walk out into that versus you know what I mean? There's like just lots of things about the environment, from lighting to spacing to maybe you're like in a ground condition where you can do a little basement thing, but maybe you're in Florida where you can't do that. Just like there's lots of little environmental impacts that go into creative decisions. So I think you can be highly creative writing a show that connects to other things. That doesn't limit creativity. I just wanted to put that out there.
Very true. Very true.
Most definitely. Cyber, what are your thoughts on that review, brother? How do you feel about it?
I think it was exactly very true. I think that he was very precise and accurate on the situation. Yes, there was very little action. Just like Arch was saying, it is very cerebral. But, I mean, there was action going on at the end of the episode, where Loki was going through stuff and being beat up by that big guy that was being taken over by female Loki. And then we had the fight sequence with Miss Minutes, as David Brooks here has so lovingly told us about. He's like, I saw some complaints about the lack of action in episode 2, but clearly the Miss Minutes fight sinks the boat. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, yeah, that fight sequence was awesome. I mean, he was trying to bat her, as good as he could, but, of course he missed. Kind of like that whack-a-mole thing going on, But yeah, I mean, clearly, there was a little bit of action in it. Not as heavy as, like, say, Falcon the Winter Soldier or anything like that. But still, there was still a little bit of action in it. So I completely agree with the guy's, comment, and that I think that's very accurate.
Okay. Alexis, what do you think about that review? I'll read it to you one more time.
Okay.
The new MCU series is a time-traveling crime thriller. The first 2 episodes are heavy on the exposition between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, and light on the action, but it's full of intrigue with a setup that'll keep viewers tuned in.
Well, it has to be a little bit more dialogue and less action because we got a lot we need to explain. I mean, we're talking about the physics of the timeline and how the shattering works and everything. We have to explain a lot of these rules. There's a lot they have to get out. And I also thought they did a very good job giving visual metaphors to help explain that. When Loki's talking about hiding in the apocalypse and he uses the salad, and then they go to Pompeii and explain, it clears it up. He could have just, sat there and said, okay, so this is my theory about where the variant's hiding. And it probably would have gone over like so many heads, or they would have been so bored by it or something. But I like that they use really good visual metaphors for that.
Very true.
Most definitely.
Very true, very true. Very true. So that is it for this live stream, guys. I want to thank both of our other amazing guests today. Of course, everyone look at Jeff's shirt because he's showing Black Widow.
I love Black Widow, man. Sorry, baby.
Hope you're studying up on Black Widow for Saturday's Tripped Up Trivia. She will be. It's going to be focusing on female superheroes. You know we're going to be asking about her.
That's what I was trying to hit you up for information. I was trying to pump you earlier to like get me so I can do my research and everything and whatnot. I don't want to come on the show and like end up looking stupid.
Well, I can't tell you all the characters we're going to talk about. That's not fair. You know, I can't give you a cheat sheet.
Alexa, can you plug that for us too? Since I think you're basically, it's your show, isn't it?
Mine and Jesse Starcher's show. Yes, we're going to be recording Tripped Up Trivia for the Radulich and Broadcasting Network this Saturday. The theme is female superheroes. Jeff is going to be a contestant, so hopefully we won't rake him over the coals with the trivia question. Yeah, he sent me a message today going, so which superheroes will you be talking about? I'm like, I can't give you the list. I sent him the graphic that has some of the characters we've picked out that we will have questions about, but it's like I can't tell you exactly what's going on. That's not fair to the other contestants.
Well, Arch, Cyber, you can't blame me for wanting to have some kind of like insider information if possible, so I can kind of like at least have an idea.
I so blame you. How dare you? How dare you?
I was talking.
Dare you? No, I'm just joking.
I was talking to Alexis earlier about this, and all I could say was I would highly recommend watching Elektra and Catwoman just a lot. Just go watch those about 5 times a piece.
Oh,
I would agree with that.
I don't know if I'll survive that, Arch.
You men are so cruel.
Well,
oh my god,
I totally.
Catwoman was a disaster, but I thought Elektra wasn't that bad.
What? I didn't say anything. I just said I would recommend going to watch those.
Exactly.
I plugged Alexis' trivia show on Sakar.freeforums.net and everything and whatnot. I went on there and let all the Sakar people know like about the show and everything. So hopefully, maybe we'll turn out some of the Podcast of Champions best.
Just let you guys know this is a monthly show. July's theme is going to be Warner Brothers animation. This is to tie into the new Space Jam movie that's coming out, and we are always looking for contestants. So if you guys know a little bit about Looney Tunes, Hanna-Barbera, stuff like that, you're welcome to come on the show and try your luck.
Good to know. Good to know. And thanks for sharing that with us, too. And anyone watching the stream, anybody that watches the stream after we're done, just to let you know, they have that wonderful trivia show that they're going to be doing. And like she said, Space Jam is coming out in July, so they'll be doing Warner Brothers theme, which is really awesome. So I want to thank Alexis and Arch for coming on today as being our guest. Of course, Mr. Arch is a part of the Podcast of Champions. So you can find him on Sakar.net that we've talked about a couple times throughout the stream today. And, of course, you can find me and Jeff on either Rizzle or through MCU'S Bleeding Edge. We have our own website that you can comment if you have any questions for us and all that kind of good stuff. Want to thank anybody that commented or was watching tonight. We appreciate you guys watching. Always a pleasure to talk about MCU, and we'll see you in the next one, guys.
We love you. Peace, MCU fans.